He built an empire worth $2 billion. But the one thing that destroyed him fit inside a dusty envelope hidden in a dead woman's desk. And when he opened it, everything he thought he valued collapsed. The rain came down like it had a personal grudge against the city. New York in October was never gentle, and that morning the clouds decided to drag the skyline into a gray war zone. Arthur Weiss stepped out of the black town car and adjusted the collar of his camel overcoat. His driver, Emilio, barely had time to raise the umbrella before Arthur waved him off. "I'm fine. Go get coffee or something. This won't take long." The auction house smelled like old money, polished wood, expensive perfume, desperation hidden under layers of civility. Arthur, mid-50s, sharp as a whip and rich enough to fund a minor country, moved with a confidence that bordered on cruelty. He wasn't born with it. Every square inch of that power had been clawed into his life. He hadn't planned on attending this particular estate auction until he saw the name on the catalog, Margaret Weller. That name hit like a nail through memory. His jaw clenched slightly, a muscle twitch he thought he'd buried years ago. Maggie. They hadn't spoken in over 30 years. He told himself it didn't mean anything, but here he was. Lot 27, an old oak writing desk, nothing special, probably late 19th century, yet Arthur's hand shot up without hesitation when it came up. 10,000, he called. No one countered. The hammer dropped. Back at his penthouse, the desk looked absurd, too rustic, too sentimental, like placing a childhood drawing in a gallery of million-dollar oils. He should have laughed. Instead, he poured a drink. It took him 3 glasses of scotch to finally open the drawer. Inside, tucked beneath a velvet pouch of dried lavender, was an envelope. His name, Arthur, was written in a looping, familiar hand. He stared at it. Time paused. The scotch burned, but the memory burned deeper. He slid his thumb under the flap. "Dear Arthur, if you're reading this, then the desk found its way back to you, just as I always hoped something would. Maybe I'm gone now, or maybe you found this too late, but I want you to know I never hated you. I never could. You once said the world wasn't kind to dreamers. I think you were wrong. It's dreamers who make the world kinder. You just forgot how to be one. There's something I need to tell you, something I never had the courage to say, and it's buried beneath the floorboards of our old place in Saratoga. If you still care, even a little, go there. And please don't come as the man the world fears. Come as the boy who once believed. Love, Maggie." Arthur read it twice, then again. He didn't cry, not exactly, but something in his face cracked like frost giving way to spring. The next morning he canceled 2 meetings, postponed a merger, and packed a single suitcase. Saratoga. He hadn't been there since 1992. The past wasn't done with him yet. Saratoga Springs had changed, but not enough to fool him. The main street still had that strange blend of Victorian elegance and tourist bait, high-end boutiques next to family-owned diners, and horseshoe motifs on nearly every sign. The air here was slower, even in July. Time seemed to loiter. Arthur parked a rented SUV in front of the house on Willow Lane. The last time he stood in front of it, the porch light had been flickering, and Maggie was crying into her hands. She'd screamed something he couldn't forget or forgive, even though it had been his fault. He stepped through the rusted gate. The house was small, white clapboard with green shutters, chipped paint, wild ivy, a sag in the porch beam like the house was tired of waiting. It hadn't been sold after her death. Some legal technicality, or maybe she'd made sure it stayed that way. He found the key exactly where he knew it would be, under the 3rd stone on the left side of the porch. She was sentimental like that. Inside, the air was stale, with a hint of rosemary and dust. The furniture had the kind of wear that told stories, not neglect, but memory. A coffee ring on the side table, a tear in the old blue armchair where her cat used to knead. Arthur didn't linger. He went straight to the bedroom. third floorboard from the closet wall, he dropped to his knees like he'd done it yesterday. The board came up with a reluctant creak. Inside the cavity, a tin box sealed with a red ribbon. He lifted it, careful like he was holding something alive. Inside were photographs, letters, and a tiny cassette tape. His breath caught. One of the photos was of them, young, sunburnt, laughing like idiots at a lake. He looked at it too long. Another showed a baby, Maggie holding her, proud and exhausted. The back read, Anna, 1994. He did the math. 1994. 2 years after they split. He stared at the picture. The baby had his eyes. He didn't move for a long time. Just sat there, in the middle of a room no one had entered in over a decade, with proof that he had a daughter. Then with shaking hands, he picked up the cassette. A note was taped to it, "Play me, you need to hear this." He dug around in a closet and found an old tape recorder. Miraculously, it worked. The tape hissed, then a voice filled the room, Maggie's voice. "Arthur, if you're hearing this, then you know you have a daughter. Her name is Anna. She's 30 now. She doesn't know who you are. I never told her, not because I wanted to punish you, but because I couldn't trust you to choose her over your empire." She paused, her voice breaking. "But I always hoped you'd find her, that someday money wouldn't be enough." Click. The tape ended. Arthur sat there, heart thudding like it had been hit with a hammer. He had built skyscrapers, crushed competitors, held entire industries in the palm of his hand. But none of it, not one damn inch of it, prepared him for this. He had a daughter, and she didn't know he existed. Arthur didn't sleep that night. He sat in the old blue armchair, Maggie's ghost everywhere, playing the tape again and again until dawn scratched at the window like a stray cat. On it. He whispered the name to himself like a prayer and a curse. Back in New York, he started the search. Discreetly, of course. Arthur didn't trust private investigators. He owned them. He called in a favor from a retired intelligence contact. The kind of man who used to track diplomats and missing assets, not estranged daughters. "She changed her name," the man said after a week. "Goes by Anna Weller, lives in Baltimore, works at a nonprofit that helps foster youth transition into adulthood." Arthur stared at the dossier. No marriage, no kids, rented a modest apartment in an old converted church building. She made just enough to live and give the rest away. He had the address, a photo. She looked like Maggie. The same intense eyes, the way her mouth tilted slightly when she smiled, but there was something else. Strength. Not the boardroom kind, not the kind you buy or muscle through. He flew to Baltimore, rented a room in a boutique hotel downtown, walked the streets near her apartment like a ghost haunting his own life. Once, he saw her walking out of a corner cafe with a canvas tote bag, her dark curls pulled into a knot. She was laughing with someone. He didn't approach. He couldn't. He was a billionaire. She was a stranger who thought her father had never bothered to exist. Instead, he sat in his hotel room that night and tried to write a letter. "Dear Anna," he began, then crossed it out. "My name is Arthur Weiss. I'm your father." No, that felt like a headline, not a confession. He wrote and tore up 7 drafts. On the 8th, he simply wrote, "Anna, there's no good way to tell you this, only the truth. I knew your mother a long time ago. We were young and in love and foolish in all the ways people are before life demands something colder. She never told me about you. Or maybe she tried and I refused to listen. That might be closer to the truth. You don't owe me anything. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I just want to know you exist, and that maybe one day you'll want to know me too. Arthur." He mailed it by hand. No return address, just a P.O. box. Then he waited. A week, nothing. 2 weeks, still silence. He told himself it was fine. He said what he needed to say. He had no right to ask for more. But on the 17th day, a plain envelope showed up at the hotel. No stamp, no postmark. Someone had slid it under the door. Inside, a single line. If this is a game or some twisted guilt fantasy, walk away now. No signature, no warmth. But she'd written back. Arthur folded the letter gently, like it might break. Then he called the front desk. "Extend my stay," he said, "indefinitely." The past had spoken, and she was angry. But she wasn't silent. The next letter came 3 days later. This time she wrote more. Still guarded, still sharp, but something had cracked open. "I asked my mother once if my father was dead. She said, 'Not exactly.' I was 15. That phrase stayed with me for years, not dead, not alive, just absent. You live your whole life trying to make peace with absence, and now you show up like a rumor turned real." Arthur read it over breakfast he didn't eat. She asked questions, hard ones. Why hadn't he tried to find Maggie? Why hadn't he come sooner? Did he even want a daughter, or was this just the final vanity project of a man who'd won every other game? He wrote back. Every sentence was a risk. Every line felt like walking barefoot over glass. He told her about the ambition that had consumed him, how he convinced himself love was a weakness. He didn't excuse it. He didn't defend the silence. He just laid it bare. Then came the message that changed everything. "Fine, one coffee, public place. You sit, I decide whether I walk away." They met on a Thursday at a cafe near the harbor. Arthur arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in a gray wool coat and cashmere scarf. He hated how nervous he felt. Anna walked in wearing jeans and a leather jacket, no makeup, eyes like Judgment Day. She sat down across from him, arms crossed. "I was curious," she said flatly. "Don't read more into it." Arthur nodded, fair. Silence stretched between them, taut and awkward. "You look like her," he said. "And you look like someone who's never been told no." He almost smiled. "Why now?" she asked. "Why not 30 years ago?" "Because 30 years ago, I was too arrogant to believe I could be wrong," he said, "and too cowardly to ask forgiveness." She blinked. The honesty surprised her. They talked, not easily, not warmly, but truly. She told him about her work, the nonprofit, how she'd grown up watching her mother scrape by with dignity but never comfort. "Did you love her?" she asked finally. "Yes." "Then why did you leave?" Arthur paused. "Because I thought success would fill the part of me she loved, and I was wrong." She looked down at her coffee. "You're not what I expected." "I'm not who I expected either." When she left, she didn't promise to see him again. But she didn't tell him to disappear, either. Later that night, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I'm still deciding, but I'm not deleting your number, yet." Arthur stood by the window of his hotel room, staring out at the Baltimore skyline. It wasn't a reconciliation. But it was something more dangerous. Hoping. 2 weeks passed. Silence again, but this time Arthur didn't spiral. He gave her space, something he'd never known how to give before. Every morning he walked to the same cafe, ordered black coffee, and sat at the corner table where they'd first spoken, just in case. Then one evening, his phone lit up with another message. "My mother's birthday is this Sunday. I cook dinner every year. If you're still in town, you can come. One plate, don't bring wine." No emoji, no pretense of warmth, but an invitation is still a door, no matter how narrow. Arthur dressed like it mattered, not too formal but clean, understated. A soft navy sweater, no watch, no cufflinks, no armor. Her apartment was nothing like his world. Second floor, creaky stairs, plants hanging in windows. There was warmth in the lighting, strings of bulbs, a flickering candle, the hum of something being baked. She opened the door barefoot, apron over a t-shirt that read, "Empathy is radical." "You're early," she said. "You said 6. I meant 6:15. He smiled faintly. She stepped aside. The kitchen smelled like rosemary and lemon. There was music playing, low jazz, old school. They ate slowly. Roasted chicken, salad with walnuts, homemade rolls. No one said much at first, but the silence wasn't brittle anymore. Then, as they were clearing dishes, she paused. "I found a letter one mom wrote to you in her old desk." Arthur looked up sharply. "I read it," Anna said. "She wanted you to know about me, but she never sent it. I think she thought you'd laugh at it, or that you'd already chosen your life." Arthur swallowed hard. She wasn't wrong. "You know what the last line said?" Anna asked. "She said, 'I hope he's found peace even if it's not with me.'" He turned away, pretending to look at the bookshelf. "You still have time, you know," she added, "to be something other than what you were." He nodded slowly. "I want to try, but I don't expect it to be easy." She leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching him. "I don't need easy," she said. "I need real." They washed the dishes together. Small talk emerged. Her coworker's obsession with astrology, his allergic reaction to scallops. Laughs came, hesitant, then more sure. As he stood at the door to leave, she said, "Next week we're hosting a fundraiser at the center. You should come." Quietly. Arthur raised an eyebrow. Quietly. No helicopters, no photographers, no Arthur Weiss Foundation banner. He grinned. "That'll be difficult." "Then prove you're different." He nodded. "I will." As the door closed behind him, he realized something. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about the market, or acquisitions, or profit margins. He was thinking about a woman who once believed in him, and the daughter trying to decide if she still could. Arthur arrived in a navy blazer, no tie, no entourage, just a quiet man blending in, holding a tray of lemon bars a hotel chef had made after he rejected the idea of showing up empty-handed. The community center was a converted high school gym with folding tables, strings of lights, and a silent auction scrawled on dry erase boards. It was imperfect, but alive. Anna stood at the center, laughing with two teens who clung to her like orbiting moons. When she saw him, she didn't smile, but she didn't look away. She gestured for him to help at the donation booth. "You count money, don't you?" "I've been known to," he replied. For the next hour he folded flyers, handed out pens, and tried not to stand out. People came and went, young adults in donated blazers, volunteers in t-shirts with duct-taped name tags, one elderly man who offered 5 crumpled dollars and said, "Wish I had more." Arthur nodded and replied, "This is already everything." At one point, a tall man in a rumpled suit cornered Anna, clearly annoyed. Arthur heard fragments. "You're bleeding this place dry, and who's that? He doesn't look like one of us." Arthur stepped closer, protective instinct rising. Anna raised a hand subtly. "I've got this." She turned to the man and said, calm but fierce, "He's here to help. You're here to criticize. Guess which one I need more." The man left. Arthur raised an eyebrow. "Friend of yours?" "Former board member. Didn't like that I cut executive bonuses to expand the food budget." He grinned. "Your mother would have been proud." Anna softened slightly. "Yeah, I think so too." Later, as the night wound down and folding chairs scraped across the floor, one of the teens, a wiry, bright-eyed girl named Jada, came up to Arthur. "You're Anna's dad, huh?" Arthur blinked. I suppose I am." "She doesn't talk about you," Jada said, "but she invited you, so you must be important." Arthur didn't know what to say. "She only lets real ones in," Jada added, then skipped away. That night, back in his hotel room, Arthur stared out at the Baltimore skyline again. But it wasn't the same view. He wasn't waiting anymore. He was becoming. 2 months later, Arthur's lawyer called him, panicked. "You can't do this," he said. "You're putting the entire Weiss portfolio at risk." I'm not putting it at risk, Arthur replied. I'm redistributing it. He'd made the decision quietly, methodically. A full restructure of his estate plan. Half of his net worth, billions rerouted into a trust, locked in for causes Anna had spent her life fighting for. Foster youth programs, housing assistance, education. The other half would remain under his name for now, but even that was shrinking. The penthouse, sold. The yacht, donated to a maritime training school. He moved into a modest brownstone in Baltimore. No staff, no imported espresso machines, just books, old records, and sometimes the sound of Anna laughing in the kitchen when she dropped by. It wasn't perfect. Some days she didn't call, some weeks they argued. But it was real. Then one foggy Tuesday, she showed up with a box. "What's this?" he asked. "Maggie's journals," she said. "I've been reading them. I think you should too." He opened the box slowly, reverently. Page after page, Maggie's voice flowed back into his life. Her heartbreak, her resilience, her love not just for him but for Anna. And her final entry, written 2 months before her death. "I've stopped wondering if Arthur will ever return. The truth is, I don't need him to come back. I just need him to remember who he was before the suits and the skyline." Arthur sat with that for a long time. That night he walked to the old desk he'd bought at the auction, Maggie's desk. He took out a pen and wrote his first letter in decades. "To whoever finds this, I once believed success meant distance. That power required sacrifice, but it was never about what I built. It was about what I abandoned to build it. I had a daughter, a love, a life. I lost them, and then somehow I found them again." The next day, he gave the desk away to Anna. "Someone should write their own story now," he said. She took it without a word, but her eyes said everything. A year later, Arthur stood at a podium, gray now overtaking black, his voice firm. "I was once a man who mistook fortune for fulfillment," he told the crowd at the Foundation's first annual gala. "But my daughter reminded me that the richest people are the ones who choose to show up, every single day." The room stood, applause thundered. But Arthur didn't care about the sound. He cared about the smile in the second row. The one that forgave. The one that chose him. And the one that said, "Finally, you came home."